Hello and welcome to this Vicon training video. This video will focus on miscellaneous enhancements to the Niagara AX 3.6 framework. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'm running a station locally on my PC named Building 1 Jace. The first feature I wanted to demonstrate is the ability to set display names for components. Now, I'll take a look at the slot sheet on the root of the station, which is showing all these main folders in the nav tree. And historically, if I wanted to change the display name for one of these folders, perhaps this main folder, I would have to come into the slot sheet and then double click that slot and type in a display name for it. My main page, for example. And note that that adds a display name slot, which is a B name map, which maintains the key value pairs for these display names, and that the main folder now is displayed as my main page. I can delete the display names by simply deleting that display names name map. Beginning in 3.6 build, in the nav tree or in the wiresheet workspaces, you can right click a component and then choose the set display name option. Then I can type in my main page, and notice that it adds the name map and assigns the display name to this folder. So without having to go to the slot sheet for the parent component, it's now very easy to assign display names to components within the workbench framework. Taking a look at the Bacnet network in the station, at the Bacnet device manager, I wanted to point out that there's a new button in the Bacnet device manager, which is to change the device ID. The purpose of this is to change the device ID in the device itself. Previously, you could always come in and type in a new device ID number here in the station, but really all that changes is the device ID that's modeled in the station, so that would affect whether or not the station continue to communicate with that device until you actually went and changed the device ID of the device itself. This button now actually allows a command to an online Bacnet device, assuming that the device supports having its device ID changed. Then the button will allow that action to be executed, and you can change the device ID and then update the station database to the new device ID. So that was a feature that had been requested by a lot of people that worked with Bacnet networks. Now, another slight change to one of the driver networks is for the LAN IP network. Let me just drag a LAN IP network into the station here and go to the property sheet view. And we'll see that under the IP channel configuration, the network config, that there's a property for the adapter now. And previously the LAN IP driver would only bind itself to the primary network adapter on the Jace or the station. So with 3.6 build, there's now an option to specify which adapter you would use for the IP network, the LAN IP network. In my case, I only have one physical NIC port on this PC, so there's only a choice for the one adapter. Also wanted to point out a small feature, but it can be really helpful, is in the workbench toolbar you'll notice that there's two refresh icons now, and one is a refresh and the other is refresh tabs. So this is extremely helpful if, for example, you stop and start a station, you had a lot of tabs open, and when you restart the station you had to go refresh each tab individually to get all the tabs to load again. Now there's a refresh tabs icon in the toolbar there that'll just cause all the tabs to refresh for you, so that's a quick time saver instead of having to refresh each individual tab. Another new feature in 3.6 is that the email service container now is a manager view. Previously, when you went to the email service, you only got the property sheet view. There was no manager view associated with it. So now this email account manager view is the default view, and from the view you can add either new outgoing or incoming accounts, and you can manage your email accounts here all from a manager view. So that's a nice improvement as well. Another change to the framework has to do with conversion objects. Specifically, you'll see a lot of these conversion objects in the kit control palette in the conversion folder. I happen to have one of those conversion objects here on the wire sheet now, which is a status numeric to double. Go to the property sheet view and you'll see that there's an option to specify what the output value will be based on the status of the incoming link. The default behavior is to use the in value. That maintains consistent behavior with how it worked prior to 3.6. In this case, as long as there's a value on the input, a valid value, the output will reflect that value. When the input goes to a null status, then you'll notice that the output remains at the last known value, and that's the way it's behaved the whole time in previous builds. If you change this option now with 3.6 to specify the out value, you'll get the field editor then, which allows me to specify, and I could say, for example, whenever the input was null, I want to output a value of 25. When the input status is not null, then it will continue to output whatever its actual value is. And it's just important to understand this behavior that's been added to 3.6 and realize that this behavior may be configurable as well with conversion links, linking between disparate data types, which is covered in another training video. Another new feature for 3.6 build is that there was a new class created which is called a B runnable job, and this facilitates doing some heavier lifting and tracking basically in program objects. If you're doing some one-off or some like robot type work where you're iterating through the station doing things, you can now create a job and run the job from the program object to be able to track its progress. So we can see this by executing this program object that demonstrates the feature, and we'll notice that there's a job that runs in the job sidebar, and then I could go back and examine the job log to see what happened during that program object's execution when it was running that job. So that's a nice feature to assist in tracking maybe these robot type program objects that might iterate through a station and do recursive work. Take a quick look at the batch editor here. There's a couple things that we need to talk about, some new features. The first thing is that the batch editor now actually uses custom field editors on slots, and to demonstrate that, let me find some alarm source extensions in the station here, and when we go to edit the slot, like if I'm changing the alarm class, you'll notice that now when I do a drop down selector, I'm actually able to pick from all the alarm classes that are configured in the station. Previously this was just a string value and you had to type in the alarm class name because it uses a special field editor on the alarm class property on the alarm source extensions to give you a drop down selector for the alarm classes, but in the batch editor it wasn't utilizing those. Another example of that might be to find Bacnet proxy extensions, for example, and when we edit the slot on this and select something like the object ID, previously this was just a string field, again, no drop down selector. So now you'll actually get the different available object ID types for this Bacnet object ID. So any of these type of property slots that used custom field editors are now much easier to work with in the batch editor. Now, to demonstrate the other feature, I'll search for maybe some Bacnet occupied set points, which are control points with actions on them. So if I look under the Bacnet network at VAV1 and the points, there's an occupied set point here, and if I right click it, then I get the actions. There's a single action to change the occupied temperature set point. So from the batch editor now, I can click the Edit Slot Flags button, which invokes this new dialog editor, and I could select perhaps the override action slot, and we can tell this dialog to remove the flag from the hidden slot. In this case, it could be from any of the slots, but in this case I'll use the hidden slot. It goes through and processes that for us, and now when I right click and check the actions again, you can see that the override action is available on the occupied set points now. And I could edit that same slot flag again, and this time choose the override slot again, but in this case use the set flag radio checkbox, which would then add the hidden flag to that. And now if I right click and choose the actions, you should see that just the change occupied temperature set point is available. This concludes this training video. Please stay tuned for other training videos which cover further enhancements to the Niagara AX 3.6 build. Thank you.